And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this finally Friday, August 15th. And we're looking at temperatures outside generally in the 70s. There's a few light sprinkles just to the south of Jamestown, stretching up towards Northwood. All those are moving eastward and kind of fizzling out, but areas around Valley City might clip Castleton, and even Fargo might get a sprinkle around the 2 to 2:30 time frame. But other than that, we're not expecting much for the rest of the afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Finally, Friday. Bridgette, you guys just missed out on some very healthy rainfall up around your area. You just missed it.
Well, to the south of us, probably a bit more rainfall. Also, I think there's a few hailstones that might have dropped. Here, less than a tenth of an inch. So that's okay. We
Right.
were all right with maybe not picking up some of that rainfall this go around.
Yeah, but looking at the end on site, Gardner Hunter areas picking up close to an inch, just under an inch, while just down the road, Prosper, not much, 200s, Hillsboro, nothing in Fargo. And last night, between Grand Forks and Thief River, quite a bit of rain fell and some hail up there, but all of that was in open area. Would be interested to hear if you have any ag land over in the extreme northwest Minnesota between Grand Forks and Thief River. Did you get any hail damage? Because those storms, they were pretty healthy last night, and there was reports of hail, at least reports of hail possibility with those storms. But again, it fell in unpopulated areas. So curious if any farmland up there received any hail damage. Hopefully not. But it still don't need the heavy rain, that's for sure.
Well, I will check. I'm just sending a message to some crop consultants in that area right now asking about hail damage. So we'll see what they have to share.
Okay, good deal. And there's no hail in the forecast for the rest of the afternoon. We're just looking at generally partly cloudy skies as we head throughout the rest of the day. Again, we can't rule out an isolated sprinkle here, but just south of Jamestown through Valley City, Castleton, possibly making it into the FM area here by 2-3 o'clock. But other than that, just a pretty decent afternoon. High is pretty close to the 80-degree mark with light north winds turning to the northeast at about 10 to 15. And then a better chance for showers and storms overnight tonight after midnight, it looks like. So if you have evening plans, you're good, but showers and storms increase overnight with lows in the low 60s. And Saturday, pick day of the weekend. Most of the day Saturday looks pretty decent. Those storms should be out of here by, let's say 9-10 in the morning, leaving for a decent day with highs in the upper 70s. More storms come in Saturday night, and a more general shower and thunder shower activity on Sunday. Sunday looks to be a little wet with highs in the low to mid 70s. And then summer warmth by next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with highs reaching back into the mid 80s. And then a cold front hits Thursday late, and that's going to drag down some of the coolest air we've seen so far this season, with highs the following weekend, at least this is how it looks right now, in the upper 60s to mid 70s, nighttime lows in the 40s for not this weekend, but the following weekend. So a quick little shot of fall air.
The following weekend would be Labor Day.
No, not this weekend.
Because I'm looking.
Not this weekend, next weekend. So
you're talking about the 22nd, 23rd.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so then Labor Day is the weekend after that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, fall is in the air.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to see signs of that on our weather maps. More of a fall-like look with pretty chilly weather coming in. But again, it's that time of the year, and in between now and then, our models are all over the place in terms of rainfall. But over the next 3 to 5 days, there will be some areas that pick up between 1 to 2 inches of rain, and there will be areas maybe 50 miles down the road that don't even get a half inch over the next 5 days. So depending on where these thunderstorms set up, there is a potential some more heavy rain, unfortunately, which is not what we need.
Not at this point. We're trying to get some harvest done. Also, with all the rain and wind that we've gotten, when you have grain that's already mature, you've got those heads that are holding a lot of heavy kernels, it's easy to lodge. And when we get the heavy rains and some wind with it, it has that grain lay down, makes it more difficult to pick up. Also, harder for that crop to dry out when it's laying lodged on the ground. So some harvest challenges going on for a lot of folks at this point.
I would imagine. And, the last thing we want, we've already had a relatively wet summer. Last thing we need is a wet fall going in for harvest. So I'll
Right.
take a deeper dive into the LRC over the weekend to see what this upcoming fall is looking like for later this month, and especially during the month of September.
That's going to make a big difference for a lot of people because generally we start to get um, September-ish. Was September Labor Day, we're going to start to see that change in soybeans as they're getting ready for harvest. So when will the next cycle set up for potential rainfall? Is it going to happen more towards the end of September, as when we're trying to take a lot more soybeans off? Really, it's going to be very curious to see how those align. I don't feel very comfortable, let's put it that way. And I know what wet harvests are like. And so the tow rope sales probably just went up more so than they wanted to.
Yeah, right. That's good. Good point.
Now, along with tow ropes and so forth, our assistant ag director earlier this week, Thomas, talked about safety with chains and ropes and so forth. But with all the rain that we've had, I had multiple messages this morning with folks out in the field. They're having to use some of those minimum maintenance roads to get from one place to the other. There's a lot of water out there. Be careful. If you have all that water and you can't see even on these dirt roads, don't go into the water. There could be washed out culverts in there and more. Let's be cognizant of that. And if you don't need to use those roads, if you think that it might just be fun to go down and see what the crop looks like and so forth, you want to do a little mud bogging, don't. That is someone's property. Those roads are going to get torn up and be very difficult for us to take equipment and trucks down them during harvest. Please, please be respectful and don't go out there and do that to many of these field roads because we're going to need that access throughout the year. And then meanwhile, as farmers on the road right now with sugar beet pre-pile, so we've got big equipment out for that. We've got large stack movers moving hay bales home. We have combines and grain carts out on the road. Be cognizant of them. They are traveling slower than you are. And really, as farmers, make sure as well to give folks as much room as they can to get around you and pull over every so often to make sure that they can pass. I mean, just everybody be courteous is what I'm trying to get to. Let's all just be careful and be courteous. We got new drivers on the road. School is starting in a lot of rural towns this week, so things are busy, very busy, to be honest.
All right. And we've got Tom on line one. Tom's got a question for us. Tom, what's your question, bud?
Hey, Dean, just real quick, when you're looking at the LRC, can you look for September 9th through the 11th? That's big iron. And when they when it's raining, they'll have better attendance.
They'll have better
when it's
attendance.
Not, they don't, right? Because you can't get out in the field.
Gotcha. Okay. Tom, send me a reminder email, and then
Sure.
I'll put something together for you. I'll send it to you, and then I'll mention something on air on Monday as well.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank you very much,
And that's September 9th through 11th, you said, right?
Right.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
I think it is.
Is that right, Bridgette?
Tom is correct. It is the 9th through the 11th. And also, when it is raining, yes, farmers can get away from their fields and go. But if we have soybean harvest coinciding, if we have some early turning beans, then they are in the field, right? So there's kind of that balancing act. And Tom is always great at taking advantage of our JLA insurance phone line of 701-293-9000. We really appreciate those calls. Hope for them all the time. And you can also send those emails, weather or ag@flagfamily.com. And for those who are sitting still and want to watch, you can find us on YouTube or Facebook, as well as Acres TV. We are Weather and Ag in Focus by WDAY, and we'd be happy to have you subscribe and follow along with all the things that we do there. And Tom asks us great questions. I do appreciate it, the reminder that Big Iron is here very, very soon, September 9th, 10th, and 11th.
It's coming up quicker than we think.
Very.
Man.
Right after Labor Day, or the week after Labor Day, I should say.
All right.
Yeah.
And our guest, we've got another fun guest coming on here this afternoon, Bridgette.
We'll be joined by Anna Bethany today. Anna is with AgriAmerica Podcasts. So for those of you who are on the road, maybe you're in a combine or a truck this fall, and you're looking for something to listen to, I'm an avid podcast fan and podcaster, but there's an awful lot of other content out there that's available. And we've asked Anna to join us today to talk about what's AgriAmerica? Where do we find it? What types of things are on their podcast website for you to listen to? Because it's free. And so why wouldn't you want to listen to free content whenever you get the chance? So we will make sure to visit with her about that and so much more. But again, if you have questions throughout our hour today, you can reach us on the JLL Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Excited to have your calls and questions and happy to answer them. We are going to get the livestock market update from the American Ag Network so we can return to talk more headlines, weather, and guests. Thanks for being here today, and we'll be back. Oh, how I hope your technology is going smooth today. And if it's not, what could be done for improvements? Well, that's why you would want to go to techsupportfarm.com, check out the fence check assessment to find out what more you need or could be done. Chris Sherman would be happy to advise you and give you some advice because you don't want to get hacked. part of a phishing scheme, scammed, or any other breakdowns in communication. And Chris can help make sure that you are safe. To answer Dean's question earlier about some hail and rainfall and so forth, crop consultants are reporting back to me from the Euclid to Warren, Minnesota areas. They had about 2 to 3.5 inches of rain, depending where you were at. There was hail involved in several places, and many had power out in the overnight hours. So it's been a wild and bumpy summer in many areas. I was on a Twitter space this morning with a gal from Southern Ontario. Same thing. They're wet. Western New York is wet. There's the highest record number of prevented plant acres in Arkansas. So we're not the only ones. It's pretty wild in a number of places. And yet there's some pockets of Western Kansas that still would like some rain. They haven't had more than 4 inches of rainfall for the entire season so far. A little crazy.
A little stormy last night. Yeah, thankfully it was isolated just to a relatively small area up there.
Yeah, I would say Euclid to Warren's not too terribly small. I'll get a map out and take a look at that, but that's a pretty big variability as well, going from 2 to 3.5 inches of rain.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep an eye on those things throughout the weekend for everyone. Our guest today is Anna Bethany, and Anna joins us from the AgriAmerica podcast. And okay, so let's start with this, Bethany. What's AgriAmerica? Fill us in.
Thanks for having me today here, Bridgette. So AgriAmerica started out as an online streaming channel. Kind of how I like to explain it to our listeners is it's a 24/7 online farm radio station. So from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we're airing agricultural news updates. Those include commodity market updates and livestock market updates as well. And then in between that programming, you can hear the best of country music. So like I said, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we're airing agricultural news and markets, sprinkled in with some country music there. And then during the evening hours, we have just country music airing on our channel. That's available to listeners 24/7. We've also built out our brand to feature agricultural podcasts. So we work with third-party vendors to kind of feature their podcast. And to date, we have roughly 100 podcasts available in our podcast library. Again, free, available at any time. We do have a mobile app, which makes it easy and convenient for you to take both of those listening sources with you on the road. But in a nutshell, we're hoping to be a source of information for farmers and ranchers whenever it's most convenient for them.
Okay. So when you say that 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's all live, right? These aren't pre-recorded, or are they specific shows that you're bringing from elsewhere? What does that look like, Anna?
Yep, they actually are pre-recorded reports. So for our streaming channel, we're working with agricultural news providers such as Brownfield Ag News, AgriPulse, Ag PhD, DTN, Progressive Farmer, you name it. We're working with a multitude of agricultural news sources to provide those reports. But when it comes to the Brownfield Ag News reports, those are airing almost real time. They're pre-recorded, but shortly after they're recorded, they're airing out on our channel. So you have the most up-to-date information, especially when it comes to the commodity and livestock markets there.
Oh, and everybody wants to hear their market reports as quickly as they can. I mean, we can get them on our phones now for our apps, but there's something about the still being able to pick it up in the middle of the day and what you consider your live radio channels that really keeps people on their toes, I think. Maybe you feel the same.
Absolutely. We also know that farmer listeners really enjoy having that connection to a trusted farm broadcaster. So being able to listen to John Perkins or Megan Grebner from Brownfield Ag News just brings you one more layer of insight, and you know that you're getting it from a trusted source as well.
Well, I like them because I use a lot of those folks as sources as well, whether it's, like you said, Brownfield News and so much more. They provide information to all of us at local levels where we can have an opportunity to look at what's happening in the current headlines and be able to share that with listeners, increasing that broad reach of who gets to hear what stories are currently happening. And, you know, as someone in your position, are you listening to the stories every day, Anna, or are you more of, I'm on the backside, I've just got to get this stuff uploaded and out? and you maybe don't even have time to think about what are the hottest news stories of the day.
Sure. I would say it's 50-50. I do a lot of work on the back end just to make sure that the streaming channel and our podcast are available, and that there aren't any issues for our users or our listeners. But I do tune into AgriAmerica pretty frequently. I enjoy tuning into the channel, especially during that day part, because for me, I just relocated, so I'm not sure my local radio station, what that would be or who provides ag news to that radio station. So I know, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, I can always tune into AgriAmerica to hear what's going on, whether it's in the markets or in the ag policy space. I know that I have that source to go to for that information.
So for some who are listening, they might be thinking, okay, isn't this sort of the competition to what we do here for Weather and Ag in Focus? Because you at AgriAmerica are offering all of this streaming throughout the day. So here's my take on that. We supplement what each other does. Because AgriAmerica is streaming throughout the day, and you have the opportunity to pick up some of those headlines, those live markets that you might miss while you're listening to some of the other shows on WDAY. Or here, with what Dean and I do, we try to focus on what's going to affect us very much locally, particularly weather, using the LRC as our weather model. Then also the news stories that are most pertinent, because we did just have rain or hail or whatever the case might be, or we have something that's very connected to our region because of the time of the year. We may be focusing more on wheat and sugar beet harvest right now, whereas someone like Brownfield News might be looking at more of a national perspective and taking a look across, waiting for the corn and wheat harvest to start and reporting what's happening with the current crop tour that's going on out there. So really, I see AgriAmerica fitting in very nicely with what we do for local news here at WDAY. I don't think that's a problem, Anna, and I hope that maybe explains a little bit to folks how we fit together pretty well.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point, Bridgette. We aren't here to replace local radio. We know that local radio is very important to the listeners that it serves. And you can't get community events on AgriAmerica. You can't get the local weather. You can get kind of a weather outlook. But like you said, we are focused more on a national scale. And yeah, we're here to supplement is kind of like how we like to refer to it, is we are here to supplement listeners after they're done tuning into their local radio station. We're not trying to take them away from their local radio station, but we hope that, when they're traveling or working in their farm shop, or just maybe somewhere that there's bad reception and they can't tune into their local radio station, that they might check us out. And even the podcast library is a great example of how we're not competing. You guys have a lot of airtime to fill, and you're trying to fill it with a lot of that local stuff. Well, if you're, when you clock out for the day, Bridgette, there's not always somebody else to come in to give you news throughout the evening. We don't necessarily carry news in the evening either, but we do have a podcast library where you can get recaps of what happened during the day, or just listen to something more on the light side that's fun and entertaining, but also ties in the agriculture industry as well.
Well, and also, it's not so easy to always find good older country music, the best of country music that people really enjoy. And this is a good spot for it. Now, Anna mentioned podcasts. When we return from our bottom of the hour news, Anna, let's talk about some of those podcasts. It's a pretty big list, and let's make sure to highlight some that folks would maybe find the most fun. Like your top favorites, like You're the Waitress Tonight. What's the special, and would you eat it? Well, we're going to find out what you listen to for podcasts, and we'll do that when we return. Fingers crossed. Our Peterson farm seed wheat is so good. I'm hoping it's still standing. When you get those heavy wheat heads, they can lodge when you have heavy rainfall. And so, with any luck, I'll get a chance to take a look at the field a little bit later this afternoon, make sure things are still good to go. Some of our tillers are still a bit green, so we haven't been able to harvest yet, but the chances are high for next week if we can stay dry for a little while. Now, for those of you who still have fields that are needing some extra attention, or maybe you're looking at some rangeland, you could talk to Eleanor or Matthew with Higher Agri-Drone Service. I need to get that in the right order, and they would be happy to take care of that for you. They've been operating a spray service out of Leonard, North Dakota for quite some time now. They've got some expertise and would be happy to answer your questions about what could be done and how for your operation. We are joined today by Anna Bethany. She is with AgriAmerica. We're talking about podcasts that can affect you agriculturally. So, Anna, for those non-farming types but are looking for good podcasts, is this still a fit for listeners?
I'd say so. We have several different categories ranging from crop production to rural mental health, outdoor living. So I really think that even though we carry a variety of podcasts specifically for the agricultural community, I think those who are not directly involved in agriculture can definitely find something that is of interest to them as well.
Have you listened to each one so that you kind of have a little feeling about what each show is kind of like?
Absolutely. So I vet all of the podcasts before they are listed in our podcast library. So yes, I've listened to close to the 100 podcasts that we currently offer today.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about some of these because I'm scrolling through them. Addison is actually scrolling them for us on our live stream. So if you're watching again on Facebook, YouTube, or Acres TV, you're going to see all of the podcasts listed. I'm going to call out a couple of them because I might need some help giving a little bit of definition. One of them is called Carbon Ketchup. So can you tell us a little bit about what that summary might be or of that show?
Yeah, Carbon Ketchup, I believe, and it's been a minute since I've listened to this one, so bear with me.
That's fair.
But I believe,
well, you got 100. There's a lot.
There is a lot to go through. But I believe that Carbon Ketchup is offered by one of the renewable fuels groups and just kind of gives folks a better idea of what's going on in that carbon space. But let me just look on my end here real quick, Bridgette. I don't want to give listeners the wrong impression of what that show's about. So let
it's
me
okay.
just
I put you right on the spot to do that as well because I'm just scrolling through too thinking, hold on, what do all these do? And my gosh, there's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so I was actually wrong, Bridgette. So my apologies. This one is actually hosted by Rabo Carbon Bank. So Rabobank, Rabo Research, a lot of folks are familiar with that company. And it talks about carbon farming, regenerative farming, carbon markets, and much more. So really helping farmers and ranchers get an idea of what's going on in that carbon space. You know, there's been a lot of talk about carbon markets, how that can be implemented into practice, you know, what kind of contracts a farmer or rancher can enter into when it comes to carbon farming. So that one would just give a really great overview of anything that has to do with the carbon markets.
Okay, so I love some of these categories. I clicked on outdoor life because, as you mentioned, even if you don't farm, there are podcasts here for you. And there's a podcast called Farm Dog about the working dogs on farms, ranches, homesteads, and rural living, presented by Goats on the Go. I'm not sure, but I think now I may have to start listening to this one too. This just sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes. So Farm Dog is one that we feature in that outdoor living category. Outdoor Adventures, that is produced by one of Brownfield Ag News's broadcasters. That one's actually pretty popular. It's within the top 10 most listened to podcasts on our platform. And the Brent Barnett, who produces that show, he is an avid outdoorsman, loves talking all things hunting and fishing. So that weekly podcast can be heard on AgriAmerica's podcast directory. We also offer it on the streaming channel too, but that one's fun. I'm not an outdoors person myself in regards to, hunting or fishing, but I always enjoy listening to Brent's show because there's something new that I learn, whether it be about outdoors programs that are offered to youth within the Midwest, or just somebody's really big catch that they brought in over this past weekend. So that's another fun one too for those who aren't involved in agriculture but may enjoy, spending time outdoors, either hunting or fishing.
And Anna, over the last few months, is there any specific topic? What's the hot topic on podcasts right now, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I'd say maybe a hot topic in general would be ag policy, and a lot of our content providers cover ag policy. But we also see folks who enjoy, we have a podcast called Agricultural Today. It's offered Monday through Friday, and it's just a recap of what happened within the ag industry that day. So great recap to catch at the end of the day if you weren't able to tune into your local radio station. A great recap of everything that happened, whether it was an announcement made by the EPA or USDA's latest crop progress numbers. That's another great one too. But I would say overall, ag policy seems to be at the forefront for our listeners, as well as some entertainment too. Like I had mentioned, Brent's podcast, which is focused on hunting and fishing. That's pretty popular. Ag PhD, of course, has a crop focus. Yeah. So crop production, I would say, would be right up there too. Farmers and ranchers are kind of wanting to get a pulse on things that they can be doing here late in the season, and just making it to the finish line with their crop there too. So they're seeking out experts like those folks at Ag PhD for some answers on their radio show as well.
There are so many categories that I can see on the website. We're talking agribusiness, crop production, education. When you say livestock, it's not just all cattle. I can see that there's a number on cattle, but there are others as well that relate to what's going on all over the agricultural spectrum. Which category is the largest, Anna? Where are the most podcasts falling under that header?
I would say the most popular categories that we have would be there's a news and policy category, and then also crop production, but also closely followed by that livestock production category that you mentioned too, Bridgette. But I would say news and policy and crop production take the cake.
There is quite the lineup. And some of these are really fairly large podcasts, folks that we've interviewed on our show as well, like Shark Farmer, the Farm for Profit podcast, and the guys with the Agronomist Happy Hour. So it's a national view, but also local. Agronomist Happy Hour happens to be two guys from North Dakota. So realistically, it can be all over the board that you may find something that you really like and want to listen to when you're scrolling through all these podcasts.
Yeah, and that's another great thing, Bridgette, is we're kind of an aggregator for all of these folks, whether you're a full-time content producer like the folks at Farm for Profit or even the Shark Farmer, or you're somebody who's doing this on the side and found that you really enjoyed talking to others within the industry and featuring those interviews, whether it's on a biweekly, maybe even monthly basis. We support all content producers, whether they're doing it at full scale or just kind of as a side hobby, but have valuable information to share with our listeners.
I just found the war on weeds, and that's also done by Dr. Joe Eichley from North Dakota State University. He's our extension weed specialist, and he does that in conjunction with two other extension educators, one from, K-State, and also then, I got to remember where Alyssa's from, but she's North Central IPM Center. So really, again, you're getting that geographical flair for the upper Midwest. But Anna, most of all, which ones do you find yourself smiling when the new episode comes in and you're like, can't wait to listen to that?
Yeah, well, I did have War Against Weeds on my list of favorites.
Huh.
Another one that I really enjoy listening to is Horticulture, more about kind of gardening and the horticulture landscape. So I really enjoy that. I do have a little bit of a green thumb, but I could really rely on the folks that host the horticulture podcast for a little bit more expertise in the gardening realm. Another one that I really enjoyed listening to is Beyond the Crops, hosted by Mary Pat Sass and Jenna Oshner. Both come from farm families. And it's just really lighthearted, and they talk about, life on the farm, what's going on throughout their operations. It's just really lighthearted. It's not too news focused, but they talk about things that are happening within agriculture, and then they're locally on their farms as well, which I really appreciate. I appreciate that farm wife take that they are able to offer. And then last but not least, I'd say bovine science with BCI. That comes from Kansas State University. And I like that because they're always tackling issues within the beef sector. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mystery episode each time. They come in with a problem, and their experts collaborate with one another, kind of do a roundtable type talk and talk through the issue, what a producer could do to either prevent that issue from happening again or just simply treating the issue. So I always like listening to their problem up front and then finding an answer out by the end of the show as well.
Well, I do have two that I want to call out, and they're both in the health and safety category. One is called Mind Your Melon, and it's actually done as a mental health podcast by a watermelon farmer down in the Southeast United States. And I think he has a great message to share, which I really enjoy having. And the other one, this is the boast for just myself and my podcast partner. We also are part of AgriAmerica. We are the Rural Well. And for us, my partner is out of Ontario. She's a sheep farmer and a registered counselor. Myself joins her, and we talk specifically about mental health and solutions for your depression, anxiety, and how to talk with your family and others on our podcast. And we come out twice a month. So there's lots to find, lots of local names. I think you'll really enjoy the Ag Queen podcast. That's another one that I really like. And that's really about talking about what's going on in livestock, particularly rodeo, and so much more. So Anna, just thanks for introducing our listeners to what you see on your podcast lineup, because if you're not listening to WDAY, I'm going to recommend AgriAmerica. How's that?
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you having us on here today, Bridgette. And like I said, we're available 24/7. Best way to find us is by searching agriamerica.com in your web browser, or you can even find our free mobile app, AgriAmerica, on Apple and Android devices.
Sweet. Thanks, Anna.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we'll have a recap on what the weekend weather looks like. Unfortunately, there's more rain in the forecast, and some areas could pick up some appreciable rain. We'll have that, and we'll hit on some ag topics when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. 1:52 in the afternoon. Temperatures in the 70s outside. We've got plenty of sunshine here in the FM area, but there's a few showers up around the Crookston area and just stretching south towards just south of Valley City. Also a few sprinkles up around Devil's Lake. There's a weak little upper level wave that's going to be moving east from just west of the FM area. It'll give us a few more clouds, maybe a sprinkle after 3 o'clock. But other than that, it should be a pretty dry afternoon with temps currently, like I said, in the mid-70s, reaching the upper 70s, close to 80 this afternoon. But overnight tonight, a chance for storms after midnight. Could pick up some locally heavy rainfall in some areas. And then we're going to see a break on Saturday. Saturday afternoon looks pretty decent if you have outdoor plans, with temperatures in the 70s. And then as we head into Saturday night and Sunday, that looks to be kind of a wet period around the area. I think we'll see more widespread rain as we head into Sunday, with temps a little cooler due to the rainfall in the 70s. I think over the next, as we were saying earlier, next 3 to 4 days, Bridgette, much of the area could pick up anywhere. It's going to vary greatly, anywhere between a half inch and some spots 1.5 inches, 2 inches of rain if they get caught under any of those bands of storms that develop over the next couple of days. So it'll vary greatly across the area, but everybody's going to get more rain. And like you said, need to kind of dry things out a little bit.
Very much so. Well, this is the time of the year that many fairs have been going on, and there's lots of talk about getting ready for next summer's big birthday bash for the United States, our 250th. And so that leads to more discussion of fairs, but here's some fun things: the history of fairs. So these traditions are not that new. In fact, you can find the history on fairs even as far back as the Aztec markets that were witnessed by Spanish conquistadors in Mexico City. And really, the first fair in the United States started happening before we were even a country. The historic old town of York held a fair in 1765, and at the time it existed as a 2-day ag market on the town commons, now known as Penn Park. But later, those historic fairs kind of came to an end, and the next fair that really kicked things off was in 1851, and that was held in Pennsylvania. Funny, Pennsylvania today does not have an official state fair. Now, the state fairs that we have around the country really have grown in size and scope. We talked about the first state fair, how big it is. Well, now New York, they had a state fair starting in 1841. Their ongoing tradition is now the oldest and largest in the United States. They have over 1 million visitors per year in 18 days. That fair is going to wrap up at Labor Day. The second state fair to begin was in Detroit, Michigan, and that ran from 1849 to 2009. So Michigan no longer has a state fair. But who might have the biggest fair of all? Any guesses, guys?
Oh, one was Iowa. I think it's Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. They have the biggest. You can take Addison?
I honestly, I've only been to 2, and that's North Dakota and Minnesota, but I think between the 2, Minnesota wins.
Minnesota is a bigger fair than North Dakota, but the largest state fair is Texas, because everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah.
So they have a whopping 2.25 million visitors that come through annually. It's held in Dallas at Fair Park, and it's actually a National Historic Landmark. And they talk about the history of the Lone Star State and as well as agriculture. And it is certainly the best attended state fair, but Minnesota, not far behind them. In 2019, they set a new attendance record of 2.13 million visitors. And they were probably all there on one day, because I've gone to the Minnesota State Fair once, and I think all 2 million people were there that night. That was out of hand.
Where did Iowa rank in there, Bridgette? Because I've always heard that their state fair is just enormous.
Iowa has a great state fair. They do place in the top 5. So the top 5 fairs as ranked are like the most fun, the best ones to go to are Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Texas, and then the Tulsa State Fair. And I say the Tulsa State Fair because you people down in Oklahoma are a raging mess. You insist on having 2 state fairs, one at Tulsa, and then Oklahoma, the state fair for Oklahoma is held in Oklahoma City. Did you all miss the memo that we have a state fair and Tulsa's not a state?
Maybe they think it is.
There's some redneck situations there. So anyway, there's 2 state fairs in the state of Oklahoma because they can't get it right. At Maryland, their most exciting thing is their birthing center. You can watch cows, pigs, sheep, and baby chicks being born. You can do that in Minnesota as well. Iowa, though, had to make a change. One of their most popular contests was the women's rolling pin pitch. You threw rolling pins for distance. I don't know who was the catcher. Was that your husband on the other end waiting for it or what? But that was deemed dangerous because apparently in Iowa they got good arms. And so now women throw rubber chickens filled with sand for a contest. What the?
You can't make this up. You can't make it up.
No. No. So I'm not throwing the chicken. I want the rolling pin back, please. That's the way to go on this. But Alaska has had a state fair longer than they've been a state. Their first state fair was in 1936, but they did not gain statehood until 1959. So a lot of cool things that happen at state fairs. We have quite a lot of history. And Elvis even went to his state fair, the Mississippi-Alabama Fair. It was the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show. And when he was 10 years old, he did not win the talent contest.
Wow.
He took 5th.
Be interesting to see what happened to whoever took first.
That is true.
Right?
Yes.
Well, want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon on Weather and Ag in Focus. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Again, more storms come into the area overnight tonight. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show, it's coming up next.